everyone, welcome to the Claire Newberry Knitting School. In this recording I'm going to show you how to do a 24 stitch pattern repeat. Okay, and I've got a couple of examples of a pattern that I've already worked on. As you can see, we've got some leaves here which I've worked into a 24 stitch repeat. Okay, so within this area here, this is my pattern area which I've used for the punch card, which I've punched out. Okay, and then what I've done a little bit extra over as well, just so we can prove the pattern repeat. Okay, so where you can see this long thin leaf here and the flat one is here. Okay, the next leaf is going to come here because this, where this line here, this red line is here, that's a demarcation line for the 24 stitch. Okay, so what I've done is I've drawn on partially the next leaf which is going to come on the next lot of 24. Okay, and then also what I've done is I've obviously got the bottom part of the pattern and the top part of the pattern, which again I've marked off with a line, a red line there. I don't know whether you can see it, there's a red line going across there, and I've also proved the repeat top and bottom, so you can see those that three little dots there, or three little squares there, okay, is actually coming at the top of my pattern here. Okay, so it's actually drawn on there, so it goes from here to here, so that will be the tip of the next leaf which is coming along. Okay, and then I've also drawn that part of the leaf there, and obviously the adjoining part here is drawn here because that is kind of split almost. Okay, so we have to kind of draw it in, so we've got to kind of what we call prove the pattern repeat. Okay, so this is the pattern that I've made from this particular design, so hopefully you can see there, that is the long thin leaf there, and then that is the flatter shorter leaf, and then you can see the tip of that leaf which at the end of the pattern will come here, and then that will be the next leaf that is drawn in. Okay, so you can see that the pattern repeat kind of works seamlessly up the piece as well. Okay, and then this is just another colourway which I've done, and what I've done here, this isn't knitted in, the other colours aren't knitted in, these are embroidered on over the top. Okay, so it has a slight relief to it, and it's what we call duplicate stitch or Swiss darning. Okay, and that allows you to get more out of the pattern. So you can see just by changing some colours, so we've gone quite contrasted red and black, and then I've got quite sort of muted tones working together, and then I've picked out certain areas with bolder colours, so you can see that the pattern looks quite different from here to here. So once you've got your pattern made, you can play around with many different colorways, and playing around upside down and back to front as well with your punch card as well. So once it's done, there's all sorts of things you can stripe in here, you can change the color, you can swap the positive and negative and all those sorts of things. Okay, but once it's done, then you can sort of elaborate on your design. So once you've done one, you may get 10 or 12 different swatches just of different colorways and different kind of permutations. Okay, so it is well worth learning how to make your own punch cards, and it becomes a lot more sort of in tune with your artwork as well. Okay, I've got a couple more over here as well. So this is this pattern here, and you can use the elongating part of the pattern facility on the knitting machine, so you could really elongate out your pattern as well, or you could mirror patterns up and down as well, so mirror top and bottom if you like rather. And also I've gone in here and embroidered, picked out certain areas of pattern, and obviously this is a different colourway, and then I've started to use different colours to pick out the yellows in here as well. Okay, so that kind of relates to that, but they're basically made in exactly the same way. Okay, so I'll try and unravel the mystery of how we do that. Okay, so what I've done here is I've got some plain graph paper here. Now this is what we call stitch related graph paper, and I'll just hold it up to the camera a bit. It's not quite square, so if you look at that, it looks sort of more like an oblong than a square. Okay, and that is because when we're doing single bed float stitch fair isle, like we're doing on these punch card machines, you'll find that the knitted stitch isn't quite square, it's actually quite squashed down, which is why we have stitch related graph paper, which is also squash down, okay, and that relates to the stitch size. Okay, we're still using squares, okay, but it is stitch, what we call more stitch related. Okay, you can buy this. It is getting a little bit hard to get hold of. We may have some knocking around somewhere in the university somewhere, but I'm not quite sure whether we have or not. So if you haven't got this graph paper, you can use ordinary graph paper, but just bear in mind when it's knitted, everything will shrink down. Okay, so everything will, so if you're trying to draw a circle, normally onto graph paper it would come out like an ellipse. Okay, so if you can get hold of this stitch related graph paper, it's quite handy, okay, to have. Right, so what I've done, I don't know whether you can see, there's a red line which I've marked off as a vertical, and then I've also gone across as well, and then I am going to come in and count over 24. So that's my 24, so I've got 10, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, and then that's the other end or the other side of the pattern repeat. Okay, so I'm just again going to draw a little red line there. Okay, not too worried about the length at this moment in time, because we can join cards together, or if you've got a continuous roll, as I say, you can obviously make it as long as you like within reason. Okay, or if you want to make a shorter one, obviously you can cut it down. You don't have to use the full 60 card length of the pattern card. Okay, so you can cut it down as long as you can get it inside the machine. Obviously you've still got to make that continuous sort of loop. Okay, so you will need to make sure that you've got enough repeats to be able to make a continuous loop and be able to thread it through into the card reader yourself. Okay, so not so crucial on the length, but definitely on the width. We've only got the 24. Now this is standard machine. We have got fine gauge, which is 30 stitch repeat, in which case you would do 30 stitches across and then draw a line. Okay. Okay, so just to get rid of that one, just might be a bit confusing. Okay, so we're going within the red lines there. Okay. So what I tend to use is a propelling pencil. They come in various different thicknesses. I've just got, these are just a cheap Bic one that I've got here, but it basically does the same job. I like to have an eraser on the end there so I can get in to quite small areas and rub out areas that I don't want to actually use in my pattern. Okay, so what I tend to do is, just try and see if I can get you down a little bit lower. What I tend to do is just start to draw, really. I'm not really adhering to any squares here. I'm adhering to fitting it into our red section here, so the 24 stitch repeat or the 30 stitch repeat or whatever, or sometimes if you're using a chunky, we've only got a 12 stitch repeat as well, so in which case you would have to score off 12, okay, rather than 24. Okay, so yeah, so I don't really kind of adhere to anything. I've just got to kind of stick within my 24 stitch pattern repeat. So I don't know, I might draw a flower. Okay, so I'll start with a flower shape, and it can be quite sketchy until I get the correct shape that I want. Okay, and I've got to think about as well the gaps within my flower as well, so between the petals, and then if I've left a gap here, it might be that you fit a leaf in here or something. Okay, so you've got to think about whether it's going to be like a workable pattern. Okay, so there's my flower. Okay, I've got to think about the float issues which we might get, so a little bit of artistic license here. So it may be that I do a larger petal that fills the whole 24, or it may be partially the 24, in which case I've got to think about what else is going in there. Okay, or it might be a stem or something for another part of the flower going up the piece. Okay, but you've basically got to think about what's fitting in there. Okay, and you've got to think about your negative space as well, where your floats are going to come. Okay, So I basically get the shape that I want. I'm not really looking at any squares at this point. I'm just getting the shape that I want. Okay. So say that is our shape there. Okay, what I can start to do then is think about where the squares are now. So I can draw in over the squares, okay, and where you've kind of gone over half a square, you have to decide if you're going to fill that square in or if you're going to leave it kind of a bit freer and a bit open, okay, and a bit more sort of sketchy. Okay, it's kind of whatever you want to do really. I've also left one space there, one sort of square space there, which is going to come in again kind of here. If you wanted the flowers to join up, you wouldn't have to do that. You could come in and sort of make that petal a bit longer so the flower would come right to the edge of the repeat. Okay, so the repeat would be coming again here. Okay, so the best thing to do is to start to draw really, and you know, it's not set in stone because it's in pencil and you can easily rub it out using the eraser there, and you can just come in and draw in the square. So you're kind of colouring in the squares now, so it's getting a little bit more serious now about which areas are going to be punched and which aren't. So where we've got the black squares, this is going to be the motif colour. Okay, so I'm just working around my pattern. Okay, I like to fill in the squares, that's just me. I find this quite therapeutic actually, so this is something I like to do maybe in front of the TV or something, and you know, it kind of needs a little bit of brain power there, but it's kind of, you know, you've done the basic kind of flower kind of shape, or the basic shape of whatever it is that you're doing, and you're just sort of seeing which is what's pleasing to you. Okay, so we're just drawing in and what you want to kind of cover or make more emphasis. I mean, you don't have to have it quite linear like that. You could fill in some areas if you wanted to make it more of an emphasis on the tips of the petals or something. So you can come in and sort of draw over more than one sort of line's width if you wanted to, or you could come in and draw another part of the petal in there if you wanted to. So you know, you could get quite elaborate on this. Okay, but I would do at least one repeat where you've made the decision about whether you're going to leave it as a white square or a filled in. It's basically binary, it's either going to be one or the other. Okay, and it's just up to you to come in and draw it in, or you could leave it quite the lines quite sketchy, and again you could draw that in as a sketch there. Or we're going to, I might decide to actually fill that in as a petal rather than putting a leaf behind there. Okay, so I'm just kind of drawing it in a bit more sort of firmer where we want that petal to be. Okay, and you may want an area filled in for the centre of the flower. Okay, make it more sort of like your eye goes into the centre more in there. Okay, so you can draw roughly what the shapes that you want. Let's just draw this kind of stem in here. Okay, coming down to the bottom here. I've got to think about my float issue. The moment we've got a big float issue here. Okay, because most of it is white area here, so you may think about putting in, I don't know, maybe a sort of a funny sort of petal shape or something, or maybe, I don't know, another kind of leaf shape or something. Okay, but you've got to think about floats, and I tend to leave about 8 stitches before you've got to think about if the float is going to be a problem or not. Okay, so it doesn't have to be, obviously leave 8 and then fill in the 9th square along. You can draw in, like we're doing here, draw in something and make something of the negative areas if you like. Okay, so here you might want to put the odd stitch in just to deal with floats. Okay, and they could be quite random, or they could make another pattern, or it could be a little bird's eye pattern or whatever, but you've got to kind of deal with them, because otherwise it won't, if you just got like single stitches and things like that, and then a great big long float, you'll get a distortion in your pattern. So you do have to make it kind of work. As I say, there is a little bit of artistic license as to whether you fill in a square or not. Okay, so say this is my flower, say I've drawn everything in now. Okay, I've adhered to that 24 stitch pattern repeat, and now I've got to think about whether I want to do more on the top. So what you can do is do a half brick repeat if you want to. So what that means is, so obviously that's the center of your flower there, so you might want another center here. Okay, bearing in mind that whatever you do here is got to come here. Okay, so if you want another flower coming there as a kind of a what we call a brick repeat, you would loosely draw that in. Okay, but what you've got drawn here, you've got to mimic or mirror here. Okay, so I just gently, or roughly rather, not gently, but roughly draw in our pattern here. So this is going to be our half, so it's split in half, and then that one is going to be coming again there. Okay, and that one is going to be coming again there. Okay, so again we've got to deal with the negative space, so that's going to be a massive float problem. So it may be that you put in a leaf shape in there, or another leaf, or a smaller flower or something, but you've got to kind of deal with it somehow. Okay, so just sort of roughly draw in your flower again. Okay, and what I would do is start with this section here. So this is going to be the center of the flower. This is my 24 stitch area. Okay, so that's going to come again there. Okay, and draw that part of the pattern in. Okay, so anything kind of within this 24, you need to be quite definite about it, and the edges of the next pattern repeat, just because we need to have approved design. Okay, so what I've got going here is going to again come here, so use the lines on your graph paper as a guide. Okay, so I've got two down from that big line there, and one there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then we've got to think about this side of the center of the flower there. So I'm just going to draw in. Does that look okay if I draw that in there? Okay, so that's going to come again here, so that's across there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the 7 down. I've gone down. Yeah, that's the same there, so that's going to be drawn there. And then a smaller part there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's 1 down, so 1 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so within my red sectioned off area, this has got to be kind of perfect. We've got to make sure it's perfect and it fits in for a pattern repeat, otherwise it's going to show in your design. So you do have to be quite definite here about what we're doing. Okay, so I'm just drawing in, going around those rough lines. Okay, so that's going to come again here. Okay, so we've got a little sort of edge of the petal there, just peeking over into a pattern repeat there. Okay, so it's this large line here and all the way up here. Okay, and then we will have to draw in the leaf shape because we've got that float problem as well. Okay, so here got to start to think about the petal here, so let's just draw that in here. Something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Also make sure you do count it out properly, because 4 sometimes looks like 5, or 5 sometimes looks like 4. So I would go in and count it. Don't just do it by eye. I would actually go in and count what you're doing, okay, because it's quite easy to miss that. Okay, so that would come again there. Okay, so what I would do is basically translate that flower which I'm drawing there, I would draw again there. Okay, so I've just started to work that out there, and obviously the other part of the flower would have to come here on your next repeat. Okay, so I would do kind of one what we call a brick repeat there. Okay, you can also do half drop repeats as well, in which case you would have a flower and then a flower coming as like a half drop as well. That does limit how much space you've got, some real estate here to draw your pattern. So I tend to go for a brick repeat if at all possible, rather than one of those half drop repeats, because otherwise you've got to fit it into a 12 and a 12 because you've only got 24 to play with. So it does make the whole pattern a little bit narrower. Okay, so try to go for a brick repeat if you can. Okay, so draw in, making sure that what the edge here matches up with the edge on the other side of the graph, okay, for the next section of 24. Okay, and then you'll have to work out where the pattern is going to end. So say I've drawn my 2 flowers in and roughly just draw a line there. Okay, so the pattern again is going to come here. Okay, because this is where we're drawing it here. So this again is going to be mirrored up here, and then there's one there. Okay, across this 2 there, and then another one there. Okay, so you can do that and just do kind of like just sort of like within the 24, but proving the pattern left and right and top and bottom. The other thing you can do is draw out the pattern, okay, nice and neatly for one kind of pattern repeat, and then photocopy what you've got here. Okay, or if you can use some software where you're using a graph and you can do pattern repeats and that sort of thing. So like the Shima CAD system, things like that, you can work out stitch pattern repeats and put them into repeat quite easily. Okay, but obviously you've got to make it 24 and whatever length you're doing, because it's got to fit into the 24 of your punch card. Whatever you've got to do, you've still got to punch out your punch card. Okay, so when you've worked out of your pattern and you've drawn it in all nice and neatly, I don't want to spend too much time drawing it all out, but obviously we go back to the original design that we looked at, the leaf design. I've worked out one complete 24 section and however high it is, and I've worked out the top and the bottom repeat as well. Okay, so you draw out your pattern. You can just see my linear drawing in there as well. I've left that in. What you can do, and this is something which, you know, if you want to get absolutely perfect and you want to kind of, you don't want to see that line, you just want to see the black and white of the stitches, what you can do is ink in all of the black squares that I've just done in pencil, and then you can rub out any of the linear initial lines that I've got for my pattern repeat there, my little drawing. Okay, so you can go in and tidy up if you want to. You don't have to do that, but as long as you've got a square, a definite idea of your pattern, then you can start to draw out one complete repeat. Okay, I say you can go off and photocopy that and make several repeats and see what it looks like en masse. Okay, you don't have to do that as long as you've got enough sort of left and right and top and bottom just to see what it's going to happen for the next part of the pattern. That's all you kind of need. But if you've got something where you can scan and print off or whatever, that's quite handy. Okay, so say I've got my pattern done. What you can do then is start to pop it onto your blank card. Okay, so what you need to do, and this is, I've done this so many times, what you need to do is leave 2 lines, just like you do on your patterns that we've got on the printed cards that or pre-punched cards that we've got there. There's always 2 lines at the bottom and 2 lines at the top. Now they are nothing to do with the pattern repeat. That's just so you can join your pattern together with the little clips. Okay, so you've got a continuous roll of a pattern repeat. Okay, so don't forget to do that. So draw off 2 lines, or leave 2 lines blank and draw a line. Okay, and then anything above that line, that's what we're doing as part of the pattern. Okay, the ones below, nothing to do with pattern, ones above, they are. Okay, so we've got our graph, and say you've done it nice and beautifully. I haven't got enough time to fill it all in beautifully, but say we've got a nice design ready to go. We just need to translate that onto the card itself. Okay, so it's left, and then there's one there. Okay, and 2, and then there's one there. Okay, and then we can think about where that petal's going to start. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not from the bottom, from the 2 that we're leaving, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're on this line here. 1, 2, 3 from the edge, 1, 2, 3 from the edge, and then we start with our pattern, and we can see it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, again, I'm using my pencil to do this, and then there's 2 above here, there's 2 here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it's across 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then we're coming to that part of the petal there. 1, 2, 3 in a step. 1, 2, 3 in a step there, and then we've got 3 coming across there. So it's 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we can start doing that center there. So I leave a gap, and then it is 1 there, 1 there, and I think there's 4 total. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then there's 2 down, 2 down, and then there's 1 on its own there, and then there's 2 here, so 1 on its own there, 2 here. So I'm basically translating all of that graph onto the punch card itself. So you can see that that part of that petal is starting there. 1, 2, 3 going up there. 1, 2, 3 going up there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a line. And it's 1 below there, 1 below there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then start here. 1, 2, 3. I always go in and count it. Try not to do it visually. Actually, physically go in and count it, because these squares are slightly more squashed down, so it looks like there's less going on there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then you can have a little sort of you can kind of make sure that the pattern's kind of adding up as you go round, and just sort of double check that where you're putting the little pencil mark there is actually the right one. Again, if it's wrong, you can go in and rub it out, or sometimes just a little bit of water on some cotton wool or something. You can just rub it out. Okay, but basically we need to translate all of that 24 there that's proved and working as a pattern. We need to translate it onto our card, our blank card. Okay, and I wouldn't go in straight with my hole punch. I would draw it on first and then come in with the hole punch. Okay, and they come in various sort of different sort of forms. This is an old silver reed one, and this you can see is a brother one. Okay, and the 30 stitch pattern repeat, i.e. the fine gauge, they have a different one again. Okay, so make sure you get the right one. These are both for 24 stitch pattern repeats, and then you do have one which I don't have here to show you, unfortunately, but there is a different one for a 30 stitch pattern repeat. Okay, so when you've put all of your design onto the the card. Okay, you can punch out all the way along for the bit that's rolling round. Okay, it's going to be joined up and making a continuous roll. Okay, so I'm punching out those to start with. Okay, obviously I won't do all of them, so you'll punch out 2 for your pattern repeat. Okay, and I also punch these ones out at the edge. There should be some little blanks at the edge as well. Punch out a few of those, because that's going to be where your clips join the pattern together, and you may have to come in and cut away and do the same on the other side as well. Just punch a few holes out, cut away a little bit, just so that the little clips joined together. Okay, so you do this at both ends. When you finish your pattern repeat, you'll have to do this at the other end as well. Okay, so you'll have 2 rows blank at the bottom of your pattern and then 2 rows blank at the top of your pattern. So if I just pull this one out, this is one which is already obviously punched already, and you can see that there's like a little cutout there and some holes punched out, little cutout, and then we've got 2 rows completely punched out for the pattern repeat, and then 2 rows at the top, and they're exactly the same as done at either end. Okay, so then what you would do, I'm not going to do the whole thing, I'm just going to punch out a few, but when you're absolutely happy with your design, and say you can go back and change it if you want to, if it works out wrong, but make sure that you've done it in pencil first, and then you can rub it out and redraw it on into in a corrected way. Okay, so then you can go in and just locate there's a little point in there. If I just sort of hold that there, there's a little point coming down, and you locate that into the little hole, and then you punch out your pattern. You go around punching out your pattern. Now, if you've made a mistake, or you find that you knit it and then you look at your knitting and you think, oh goodness me, there's another bit that I've not punched, or I've punched this wrong, it's not the end of the world. You don't have to redo the whole design. You can get a very, very well piece of sellotape that's sticking very, really well, and adhere it to the plastic. Okay, so go over the hole, okay, with your sellotape. Okay, and you may also have to do another little piece of sellotape over the hole as well. Okay, it doesn't matter that it's clear, it just means that inside the mechanism of the knitting machine, there's pins which come through. So where there's a hole, that means that as a pin comes through and it makes it a motif colour. Where the pin can't get through, i.e. An unpunched hole, it means that it's just going to be the background colour. Okay, so by sticking a little tiny piece of sellotape over the hole of where you've made the mistake, that means that the pin can't get through. Okay, so that means that you can fix any kind of problems. Okay, so once you've done all of your pattern and you've done several variations, you can turn it upside down. Obviously, if it's something that's symmetrical, that won't happen, but you can turn your pattern upside down, so your flower is going to be upside down. And you can also turn the pattern card around like so. So you can get a left facing flower and a right facing flower if you've got flowers which are facing one way or the other. Obviously, if you've got something that's symmetrical in all 4 areas, that's not going to work if you turn your pattern card around. But obviously, if you've got a top and a bottom, a definite top and a bottom, and a definite left and right to your pattern, that means that you can go in and turn it round, so you can get more out of one pattern. Okay. Then what you can do is, when you're happy and you've done all of what you can do with your flower design, you can go back in further for more pattern ideas. So you can draw in, come back to your original pattern and draw more areas which haven't been punched already. Okay, so I'm just going to an inner part of the petal here. Okay, so I don't know, something like that. Maybe that's your pattern. Okay, and then what you can do is draw on that extra that you've done, so you can draw that on extra to your pattern and then come in and punch out more areas of the blanked area, and you can do that as many times as you like, and obviously you'll get a different design coming. So now you've got you know, flowers with sections within the petals, or maybe you want to come in and draw more leaves in there, or overlap more leaves onto your petal design, or whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, so again, if you don't want to draw over your original, you can photocopy this and draw on your photocopy rather than your original, because obviously you can redraw the original if you want to for another pattern idea. Okay, but essentially that is you know, from one pattern or one idea you can get several repeats or different ideas of pattern repeats. Okay, and similarly you can do diagonals as well. Okay, so you could have a diagonal leaf shape or something going across, but then you'd have to work out, you still have to sit within your 24. That's the fundamentally that's what you've got to stick to. That's all the width that you've got, 24 or 30 depending on which machine you are working on. Okay, so that is very, very basically how you can do your own patterns and make different colorways and different designs by working up different patterns and redrawing things in and then recoloring things in as well. Again, you can do this on photocopies or just go in and embroider over something else. Doesn't have to pick out the leaf. You could be drawing, I don't know, an animal on here or something, or whatever, you know, berries, or I don't know, whatever you want it, whatever you want it to be. Okay, and hopefully that has sort of helped you in making your own pattern cards. Okay, so happy knitting with that.